Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I'm Mr. Forrest. This week I have another Radha Krishna Roundtable. We wanted to do this one especially today because Radha and I just got back from the touring around the UK, Ireland, and London. And we had so many things we wanted to share that were like fresh on our minds. And so it just had to happen. And it's always lovely to talk with my sweetheart Radha, and so I'm sure you are going to enjoy this very much. I'm doing a quick turnaround. I'm going to say a lot about the tour, and so thank you to everyone who came out to the shows. They were truly like transformative and life-changing for me, but I'll speak in detail about it in this ensuing episode. But tomorrow I'm headed out to Denver because on the 20th, if you're listening to this in real time when it comes out and you're in the area, please, if there's a couple tickets left for the full ceremony concert that's happening in Denver on April 20th, the good old 420. We'd love to see you there. And then we'll be in San Diego on the 25th to do another full ceremony concert. So these are really special events for me because we get to find these large spaces where you can lie down, and we have the piano, and I'm in the middle of the room, and it's just unique, shall we say. And I'm really looking forward to being there. I also want to say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/EastForest is a way to support the work and this free podcast. And I'm really grateful to everyone on that Patreon. We call it the Council, who is supporting the work. I'd love to thank Elle Marie, Heron M, and Sean C for signing up recently. Also R.E.P. Thank you. It's really nice to join our council, and I'm looking forward to all the things that we do there, including our monthly Zoom council, and it's a place where I get to share demos and other fun things and just be in community together. I also just want to quickly say some housekeeping that we just announced. We'll be back at Esalen. So this is the first retreat for this year that's happening July 1st through 4th. That is a Friday through Monday, so a little longer than most Esalen retreats. And this will be also with Radha, who's on this show. So that is now open for signups. They tend to fill up, so I'd love to see you there if you think it's you're feeling the call and it's right for you. We might be back there later in the year. And we're also going to be in North Carolina in August for a Ram Dass retreat with Love, Serve, Remember. A lot of our friends there, people who've been on this podcast too, including Robert Thurman. I think Spring Washam will be there, who's been on the show too. So you can sign up for that now too. All that's at eastforest.org/tour, including all the new shows. And lastly, I believe also Portland is ticketed for the Old Church, one of my favorite venues. Can't wait to take the energy from the shows that we did in Portland and London and take that to Portland. That's on May 15th, I believe. So thank you again for getting those tickets in advance and helping spread the word so that we can, do this thing together. And lastly, we are ticketed for November 15th in London again. So can't wait to expand our community there and return. So this podcast today, I made us some bulletproof coffees. I was a little juiced at the beginning, but I calmed down about halfway through. But Radha, of course, is perfect and sweet. And I think you're very much going to enjoy this. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to share a track from, I'm releasing an album of B-sides from the Possible Sessions. And the album is called Still Possible. And I think 3 songs are out. Every week, a new track is coming out. So this week, I'm going to feature on the podcast a song called A Breeze Told Me So. And it features a friend of mine from down in southern Utah called Richard Woodbury, who plays the guitar in a very lovely fashion. So that's rolling out and that's coming out. Evan Lawrenson did this really cool handmade art for it. So there's different artwork, different iterations of it for every single week of the release. And it will culminate in a full LP called Still Possible. All right, let's get into this conversation with my partner, Marissa Radha Webner. So, we just got back from tour. 2.5, 3 weeks. I think 2.5, but it feels like 3 in Europe. And we just woke up. It is morning in Boise, evening in the UK, early evening, and our clocks are turned around. But we wanted to be fresh to kind of debrief the experience because so many things happened. And we're a little high on bulletproof coffee.
Yes, thanks for that. The morning coffee ritual.
Well, you know it's a special day when bulletproof comes into the mix. And for those who are watching this on video, I apologize. Well, I have these massive headphones from a side view that makes me look
like
kind of ridiculous.
Leia.
They're almost the size of my entire skull. But for the audio audience, it does not matter. Okay, so what's the best way to we do this in reverse time, in chronological time, or total popcorn style?
I think reverse or popcorn. You know, we were just in Ireland. That was our last destination. And so I know for both of us, it probably feels a lot fresher still than our time in London. But it'd be great if we got to the time in London, but I don't think that that's where we'll start.
Well, anyway, I mean, it was first time for both of us to go to Ireland. I hadn't been to England in probably since like college or just after college. So essentially it kind of felt fresh. And for you,
my first time
first
to
for both. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'd never performed in either place. So that was a big deal. And then, of course, on top of all this, with COVID, you know, I haven't done European touring since, I think, 2015.
Well, Bulgaria was 2016.
You sure?
Yes.
Then that was the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, like I had done it 4 or 5 times, 2014, 2015, 2016, something like that. And back then it was pretty scrappy for me. Like I always thought like, oh, I think my music would go over better in Europe because you always hear about European audiences really liking experimental stuff. And so I had that in my head, right? Mm-hmm. And so back then if I got the gigs like in Bulgaria, I think I went twice there. I got a gig once in Berlin with Lululemon. I got other little things that took me over there. And then I would put together a super scrappy tour where I do crazy things like drive from Amsterdam to the south of France to play at a bar, you know, and then like go all the way back to Prague. And I just drove in this little car and it was nuts, totally nuts. And this time when we went, I'm like, how the hell did I do things like that? Because now I'm older and even this felt, I mean, I don't want to start with like the difficulties, but I will just say like it wrecks you. Like just the jet lag thing and coming back and all the travel and you're like, oh, whatever, we'll do it. But it's intense.
It's a lot on our bodies.
It's a lot.
It's a lot on our bodies.
You got sick.
I did. I got sick in London right after the London performance at the St. Pancras Church.
And getting sick these days is a much bigger deal.
It's like the scarlet letter when you're sick. And it wasn't COVID, but it was like a serious sinus infection.
But at the beginning, you're like, who knows?
Sure.
Because when we were in London, it was the tail end of the 4th wave of COVID. So we knew like, okay,
yeah,
it's flowing around.
Yeah. But it hit me very, very, very hard. And it was one of those where your nose just doesn't stop running and you're miserable and you're achy and you're hot. And then because you feel like you have the scarlet letter, you're trying to downplay it. And then I was trying to downplay it even more because I didn't want your stress level to peak or spike.
It's so hard, you know, as a performer because your body and your health is your instrument.
Yeah.
And, you know, you do all this work to get over there and all this planning and God bless the people who are buying tickets. And you're like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I've been rehearsing for weeks.
That's what I know that you're going through. And so it's like, if Radha gets me sick,
I'll fucking kill her.
This could ruin everything. And so I was incredibly, to my credit, I'll just say, stoic.
You were great.
Like,
you know, I mean,
I'm fine. Everything's fine. Not one complaint. We traveled the day that I was the most sick from London to Dublin. And it was one of the hardest experiences of my life.
And it's like oh, this flight should be like an hour, right?
Yeah, you should hop over there.
And instead, the flight I got went to Amsterdam and then to Dublin. And then we had to get to the airport, of course, like 3 hours early just to go to like these new countries.
Yeah.
And basically it turned into early in the morning till super late at night of traveling just to get just over that little hop to Dublin. And you were super sick. And then we arrive and a piece of my luggage is missing. And it's like late at night and you're sick and we're in Dublin. We just arrived. And I'm like, where's this bag that has all of my personal stuff and gear? It has more gear. We have 4 checked pieces, my keyboard, a big thing of gear, another one that's like your bag, and then one that's my bag and gear. And that one is gone.
Yeah. When it didn't show up on the little turnstile thing, what is it called?
The carousel.
The carousel. Yeah. I kind of knew instantly, like, oh, it's not.
And I told you that when we were landing, I had this weird sense going through my head that particular bag wasn't going to make it. But I kept telling myself like a mantra, like, that's not true. And sure enough, I felt it. And so I go over to the whatever desk. I'm like, can you guys help me out? And they're like, oh, we have this third-party company that tracks bags. Go over to them. I go over to them. I swear to God, they hand me a piece of paper. Just like, fill out this piece of paper.
Which is, for you, so archaic. You're like, why am I on a piece of paper with a pen right now?
It's already like, this isn't going to go well. And, I'm filling out things like, describe your bag. And I'm like, it's black. It's like every other bag, which now I'm like, I should do something different. Do you know why I have black bags? So that they're not as seen in a car at night. But they're not good for sticking out amongst other luggage. Anyway, man, we fill out this thing and we move on. And I've got the show the next day in Dublin. And I'm just sitting there racking my brain. Like, I'm still thinking like, oh, they're going to bring it to the hotel tomorrow morning.
Up. We've lost bags before and they show up
usually
really
the next
quickly.
Day.
Yeah.
And it's not arriving the next day. And then I start thinking, all right, what the hell is in there that I need for the show tonight? And we had to go to a music store. And then I also
got some cables.
Talking with the promoters, like, can you get a power converter? Can you get this thing? And they were awesome. They're just like, yes.
What we did lose was all of what we call the jangles. And those are like the bells and the shakers.
All my percussion.
And the sounds that I'll move through the space with when I work with you.
For the record, it's still gone. Like, a week and a half went by. We've flown all the way back. I've called them many, many times. KLM, you have a lot of improving to do on customer service and finding bags. A lot. But we still don't have it. And if another week passes, it's considered officially in the ether.
Yes.
Vaporized.
We went out, though, that day on Saturday before your show and got you a couple pairs of socks, some underwear.
Oh, yeah, I had no clothes.
2 pairs of pants.
I had no toiletries.
And
so
shirts.
We're like, I guess I need clothes for tonight. And so we only had like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So we went downtown Dublin and we're like, we need to buy some shirts
Green.
And pants and underwear and socks. And,
just the basics.
Oh, man. I mean, just to be totally frank, it's the logistics of touring that I personally find far more stressful and anxiety-ridden than performing. I enjoy performing.
Yeah, I should tell you guys this. I mean, he's so particular about the logistics of traveling. You bring a scale.
It's fearful.
I know. We weigh everything. When we were packing in Boise to leave, the suitcase that got lost, he was wanting us to share with all of our clothes. And he packed it, and it can only weigh 50 pounds. And so then after he put all of his things in it, he's like, Radha, you have 9 pounds for everything you're going to need for the entire time
we did bring
that we're going to go. And I'm like,
stuff.
I can't do that.
I know.
So he let me bring another bag, which was my stuff.
Part of it is like the fewer bags you have, the less chances of one, getting misplaced.
Does that cross your mind like Radha brought that other bag and then my bag got lost?
No, there was no option. We had to bring the other bag. But I do think a lot about, like, I'll just sit here in a chair, for years and just stare at the luggage and think through scenarios of like, if that one was gone, like, what's the backup plan?
Well, fortunately, you
the
do
show
that
must go on
because you don't want to pack certain things in the carry-on just in case it gets lost. You wouldn't have these key pieces for your show. Yeah. You wouldn't want to check those pieces. So then we end up both then carrying 50 pounds of gear in our separate. You have a carry-on of your gear, and I have a carry-on of your gear. These are the essential pieces.
And the fragile stuff.
The fragile stuff.
Yeah.
So
the stuff that's a lot harder to replace.
To avoid it, if it were to get lost, we keep it with us the whole time.
It never leaves me, ever.
And it's, I mean, by the end of last night getting home, it's so heavy.
I know. Believe me, man. Story of my life. We're probably about 200 pounds of gear, which is not a whole lot for a typical band, but it's just having to think through these things. And it's not just like some arbitrary, I'm afraid of consequences. It's more like, I want the show to happen. You know, like if I just like what I would feel so bad flying all the way over there. And it's like, we can't perform, not because I can't perform, it's because like, I don't have my keyboard. Right. And so it's like, even that, it's like theoretically, worst case, maybe I don't even want to go into it.
Well, let's just say the shows did go on and they were some of your best ever. I mean, being Radha with you, I think I've probably been to 95% of your ceremony concerts.
And these were quote unquote venue seated shows.
Well, let's say 95% of your performances in the last 4 years. I've been at so many of them. Those were two of my absolute favorites by far, especially Dublin.
I mean, both of them were total highlights for me. I'm just turning this up right here.
Sure.
Okay.
And so I was thrilled to see you be able to perform like that. Like the way that you've put the set now, the ways that you've changed it, and the ways that you've changed classic songs, and just the whole arc of the performance and the way that you interacted with everyone that was there. I mean, all of it. I didn't do the things that I typically do, but that was all 100% fine.
Well, it's been a couple years, actually, when you think about COVID, since I've done a straight up venue show where folks are seated. And I definitely wanted to rethink it, reinvent it. But I also was just wondering, like, what were the differences between this and a quote unquote ceremony concert? And then also, what is the common thread and the glue that's irrelevant of how we set it up that I can still bring into this? But, it's shorter too when you play in a venue. Maybe it's 90 minutes in total. Mm-hmm. And so you're thinking through that arc and energy of that performance. And we had pianos at these shows, which was wonderful. And also lighting packages that I didn't know. Like, I was pleasantly surprised to show up for both shows. And maybe this is a bit more of a Europe thing, but the promoters had these lighting people there that were awesome.
Yeah. Phoebe was fantastic. And then John in Dublin, both just amazing. And the crew in Dublin.
Phoebe did sound.
Well, who was doing lights?
I thought
she was.
Know.
No, she was doing
she
both.
Did both?
Yeah, I asked her. I said,
wow.
"Are you doing lights too?" And she said, "Yeah." So she was great.
Well, and we were in churches, which was cool. I liked that. I liked the vibe. And it's St. Pancras in London. The whole what's it called? The part where the priest, the front. I call it the
altar.
Stage, but essentially the stage.
The altar
was all tombs.
Yes.
Like old. The church is 1,700 years old. And these
not built in the 1700s, 1,700 years old.
In the middle of London. And there's these tombs. And I was like, is this where I set up? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, on top of the tombs? They're like, yeah. So I stopped, put my hand on the tombs, like, thank you for allowing me to perform on top of you tonight. I appreciate, allowing me to be here temporarily. A lot has gone down
so much
in that church over the years on that land. God knows. So it was, the shows were huge, huge highs. And then there were huge crashes the next day too, because if you add in like these elements of, do we have the gear? We got to get clothes. We just flew over. Maybe you're getting sick. And you just like dredging up all the energy you can to get through. And then you do it, and it's this huge high, and all of your energy is going to that. And the next day, and usually you don't sleep well, or maybe had a couple beers, you're a little hungover. It's tough. It's tough to feel so depleted.
Yeah. Yeah. My mind just goes to what could we do to help that process for you where it's not such a crash? I think it's possible to have a formula.
I don't normally crash like that, but I think it was the combination of the jet lag and the higher levels of stress going into the show. Sort of like you expend all that emotional and energetic currency. So really, I think the ways you can lower that beforehand helps the next, don't have it be so intense going into it. You can't always control that, right?
When you say intense, what do you mean?
Like, you can't control losing the gear and stuff, but when that happens, and then it's kind of on me to all the thinking, that stress level and the cortisol and the adrenaline is so high that inevitably you have to rebuild that. So I'm saying, quote unquote, normal shows where it's a little smoother. Hopefully, I don't feel the huge depletion the next day.
Well, I think at least Dublin after that show, which was your highest high and so glorious and so just epic, was your biggest crash. And I think part of that was your anticipation of going to work with Peter as well. And that was another
which was amazing.
layer.
But so we went to Dublin, or after Dublin, we went to the countryside, Western Ireland, all the way on the coast, 3 hours, and spent a week with Peter Broderick, which we'll talk about, which was something that I was anticipating very, very positively and just really, really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole reason I was even there.
Absolutely.
Because way back, there was like this interest in a private gig in Ireland. And because of that, I told Peter, who's been on the podcast twice, you should listen, he's an awesome podcaster. I was like, hey man, I might be over there. You wanted to say hi. And he's like, what would you think about collaborating, like holing up in a house and doing some work? And I'm like, hell yeah. And so he God bless him, found this cool place, booked it.
The beekeepers in the Burren.
And once he booked it, I just asked Rich, my agent over there, I was like, can we get some gigs to help make this trip a little more sustainable? And he got those 2 gigs. So it was a reverse process.
Well, it worked out really well. But I know that the next day we were, after your show, packing up and going over there. That was a little hard on you. And then additionally, the fact that I was driving and it was on the left side of the road and you were
in Ireland, mind you, which has no shoulder in the rural Ireland. It's just like a stone wall about 6 inches from my face.
If any of you listened to the podcast that Krishna and I did after we went to Australia and New Zealand, you might remember how hard it was for him driving on the other side of the road. And so this was me now as the driver, which even just letting go of that layer of control to have me be the driver and you be in the weird passenger seat. When you come from somewhere that you drive on the right side and you go to the left and you're the passenger, you're used to sitting in that seat because you're the driver and you want the steering wheel in front of you and you want the brakes and the gas in front of you and you don't have it and you are constantly in fear of running into the side of the road.
Well, there's the other layer, because I know this from when I was in New Zealand, and it was a little easier in Australia because the roads were bigger.
Yeah.
But New Zealand and Ireland with these super tiny windy roads and no shoulders, when you first start driving on the wrong side of the road, shall we say, the left, you inevitably as a driver are going to be drifting to the left because you also feel like if I have the car where it should be, so to speak, you feel like you're too far into the road.
Well, I noticed it's more my positioning. Like if here in the States, you drive and you're on the left side seat.
Yeah, as
right?
you would in American
driving. Yeah, so you have like a left side lean, like you lean towards the window a little bit in your body. And so then when you're in the seat on the right side, my body was leaning to the left, and then you go just a little bit more to the left.
Well, the margin here, though, are inches. That's why it's so noticeable.
Centimeters.
I mean, it's very, centimeters. It's
and then we're driving the Tesla that we got because it was a lot less expensive, interestingly, than like
a little bit less
an enterprise rental car or whatever.
They include charging.
And you don't have to pay for gas,
but we didn't
which is
think
amazing.
that, there's not a lot of places to charge in Western Ireland.
We figured it out. But the car is showing you on the screen the left-hand side,
Beep, 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 beep,
yellows
beep, beep,
and
beep.
reds of how close you're getting to the edge. And in most case scenarios, if you're even driving as far as you can to the right, the left side is still on alert because the roads are so narrow.
It's essentially saying, what are you doing? Like, you've got like a huge rock obstacle on the side of your car, and it freaked me the fuck out. And I mean, when I was in New Zealand, I got this headache because you're also turning your body in all the opposite ways to look over your shoulder and so forth. That I got some kind of muscle pain that was so bad when we were on tour in Australia that I went to a doctor because I
remember.
thought I had a spider bite,
and you were dying.
I didn't think I was dying, but I thought like I might need some kind of medication. And they took me in and they're like moving my limbs around, like, as if they're like checking to see if it was MS or something and asking me all these questions. And then at the end, they're like, I think it's just stress.
I think it's the stress from driving.
And I was like, oh shit.
So anyways,
it's real.
You can be a prickly little traveler. I don't mean to say that.
I'm also have a lot of things I do pretty well.
You do a lot of great things well. It's just when you get into that hard states that we're speaking to, it is hard. I
know, but sweetie, part of it, as I'm trying to say, is like I'm in this almost unnegotiable position of like, okay, this show is happening in 2 days or the next day, and all these things I can't change.
I'm aware of why. I'm aware. That's why
I wish I had a better solution.
Sure.
And I am aiming constantly for how can I improve this? And truthfully, I mean, who's suffering the most? It's me. Believe me. It's hard because you have to like marshal the energy to. You got to just do it. And a lot of what just doing it means is other things get sacrificed. And that's why I say, like, being in a relationship on the road, we're in this interesting situation where on one hand, I want you there and it's awesome to share it. On the other hand, I'm like, there are going to be times you get the short end of the stick because this performance is going to always take precedence because it has to.
That I 100% understand.
I'm just saying it sucks.
It
sucks for me too.
Sometimes sucks to be me.
It sucks as a human being. I'm saying like
it's all right. It's all right. I'm so aware of what's going on. None of it is a surprise. I absolutely know how to get through it. I think with the most grace and fortitude and service as possible, and it's totally doable. And in the end, it's all a great success. It's just if I can speak to the edges that it pushes me to internally, holding that space and assistance for you, it's such a high level skill, or at least a high level skill meaning like I feel like if it was another person, they would lose their minds.
Why? Well, why do it?
Because I know that it's temporary. Like I know it's just like a vibrating edge, and it's like, and we've been there, and it's like, oh, here's this place. I totally know it. I can hold this. Woo. It's like the eye of the hurricane, and then I know it'll clear, and we get through it. And so that's why I can do it, because I know the payoff in getting you to the stage or getting you to the next whatever is incredible. And I just see it all unfolding, and I can hold all of that tension within myself because I really know that it's a temporary experience.
Yeah, it's true. And I also like can feel it coming up in me right now, like this deep sadness that the struggle then internalizes inside me to like look at all the damage being done to myself, to you, for the sake of something that I see being in service to other people, like so that we can do this experience. And then what goes through my head is like, this isn't sustainable.
I guess I don't see it as damage. Like I see it as tension, and it's like a squeeze.
It's a price.
Yeah, but again, it's
the
temporary.
Cost. It is temporary, but it leaves scars of like, or bruises at least, that they do heal. Like, I'm just saying that like, it doesn't go unnoticed to me where I'm just like, okay, we got over that after a day. Now let's move on. I remember it, and I really truthfully dig deep inside. Like, I mean, is there a way? What can I do? What are the blind spots? And I wish I could just shift a perspective, or is it certain kind of, I haven't cracked the code, and I'm worried because I'm like, I wouldn't want to do this for 10 more years, like that. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's always this thought in my head that, oh, if XYZ happens, right, some kind of growth thing, then these certain things won't be an issue. And that's I have just faith that that's true. But you know what? I don't know. I don't know
either. And I feel like as this has happened so many times, I've almost come to see it as somehow part of the recipe of the beauty and the inspiration and the awe and what comes through, that it's almost like a birthing canal. And that, so while it's difficult in the birthing canal, I know the birth is going to happen. And so I suppose because it seems so baked into your process, I question whether, I don't know, like, how would it be if it was just easy and breezy for you? Like, would it be as rich? Maybe it would be.
It may be. And, the analogy for me is when I go into ceremony, I also feel this energy of resistance. It's a kind of resistance. And there is that birthing canal is a good analogy, because there's this like tension and you're pushing through, and eventually there's a moment of breaking through. And then after like a birth, there's also that exhaustion. It can be elation, but it's sort of like that. Okay, now we need to there's a cycle. Now it's time to rebuild. And I recognize in myself that resistance, and how almost in a weird way, there was a part of me that knew before the Dublin set all these restrictions, limitations, like I don't have certain gear, or like we were having to like kind of rush into it. I knew it also was a recipe for greatness in a way. And because I know that in some ways those kind of limitations in essence make you focus more and allow you to have less choices. Like, no, now I'm just in like really here mode, because there's nowhere else.
Right.
You're really on the seat of your pants.
Right.
And that's a good recipe for art, but it's also intense.
It is intense, but I guess because I see it so well as part of it, it doesn't make me then think this isn't worth it or this shouldn't happen because it's hard. So I'm not labeling the hardness as a judgment of like bad, don't have it happen. It's just like, how do we move through the hard, knowing that it's hard, having a larger perspective, and trusting that too.
And I think about it when we go back to the logistics. Part of those logistics are on like, what kind of show are you trying to put on? And I've been really committed to it being live, leaning more into the improvisation, to the complete unknown. And so having all the loopers and the stuff and the pianos and the microphones, because I'm like, well, I think that's a better show. But then I look at someone who just rolls in with like a laptop or a thumb drive, and I'm jealous on one level, because I'm like, that looks very straightforward. It's predictable in a way, but it's the unpredictability of what I'm talking. The stress itself, the unpredictableness is what makes it so great, or has the option for it to be so alive.
Yes.
And as an audience member, when I'm at a show, I want to see something alive. And boy, is it alive.
Yes.
And that's what's so scary, because you're giving yourself over to like, this is what I'm going to do, and then the universe is bringing the rest. And fuck, man, these days, it's a lot easier for performers to say like, I don't want to have that much openness, because it's too much. It can go so many different directions, and it is true. But it also can allow for something to happen in the room as a conversation with the people in the room. And that the audiences were so giving.
Yeah, both
that
sets.
That's what allowed for the shows to be alive and special.
I think that's also it also happens because you ask for that in the beginning and you say very clearly and directly, just give me your attention. And the more that you give me, I can give it back. And we're in a conversation together, and they opt in and they say yes. And then they do.
And
so naming that at the start helps with the depth and the beauty.
I was talking to Peter about this, who performs a lot. And we were both just like, couldn't agree more about the role of the audience and how powerful they are and how they typically don't recognize even the individual, like one person totally tuning out and getting their phone. You see it in the dark, like someone's face lit up, and it's like it's like a hole in a balloon. Mm-hmm. It's like and it's like, oh, please come back, because we all want to be. We want, It doesn't take much.
But when everybody's
conversely, oh my God, it's magic.
Yeah, and that's what you're aiming for, is everybody to choose to opt in. And not just a performance with music and audience, it could be at a party, it could be at a play.
We also did a quote-unquote performance at the Barbican for Futurist Sound Conference, which wasn't live music, it was just a live meditation. And that audience was like a drinking crowd in my mind. They scheduled me after the intermission, and everyone's like were those alcoholic drinks? They must have been.
Some
people
of them
were drinking?
Yeah,
okay.
There was the bar.
It was a boisterous Friday night crowd. And I was like, this is Friday night energy. And now I'm supposed to they're supposed to come back. They're trying to get everyone back in their seats. They're trying to.
I think it was a Tuesday.
Please, everybody, please sit down. Hey, please, everybody, please. I'm like, this is the worst.
Wrap up your conversations.
Yeah, okay, now let's meditate, There's like a difficult setup. But they, again, went there.
They did.
Right.
But you asked for it.
I had to, because I'm like, this is what we're going to do. It's only going to be 15 minutes, but why not just do this together?
And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So you can orchestrate that in such a great way. And you do. I think the naming of it is very powerful.
I'm still feeling like, just talking about it, I feel all this like tension in my chest of like what the memory of that is.
Tell me.
Like the tension of walking into it.
The tension of right before?
Yeah, days before, the day of, whatever, yeah.
So what are you feeling in your chest?
Like tight. In my throat and chest. I always feel it in my throat, this kind of tightness. And I wonder if that's like, about expression or trusting, being able to express yourself, literally like speaking, singing, so to speak, in this area. Anyway, it's crazy too, because like tomorrow I'm taking off for 4 more dates here in the U.S., which I'm excited about. But it's just like, wow, this is intense.
It's an intense run for you. But let's talk about Peter. Let's talk about our time in the Burren.
Peter Broderick.
We finally got there the day that we were driving over.
Should I set it up a little bit?
Well, I thought you did a little bit already.
There's a little more history. I think it's a good setup.
Sure. I've
told this story on the podcast with Peter, but essentially many years ago, I was a fan of Peter, and I wrote him an email. And it was something like, I love your music. It's an inspiration to me, blah, blah, blah. I think we both grew up in Oregon. Thank you. And he wrote me back, which is rare, and just said something like, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Sending gratitude from wherever he was, Germany or something. And that meant a lot to me. And then many years later, when I had the Ram Dass Reworks project, I had his email because he wrote me, like his direct email. So I wrote him and said, would you like to do one? He said yes. That was awesome. And then because of that, we did some podcasts. We got to know each other. That was awesome. And then I had written him about collaborating. This is a couple of years back. And I sent him these piano tracks I was working on. It's like, would you like to help me collaborate on this, put some strings? And he said no, essentially, very kindly. And I was cool with that. I'm always like, well, I'll take the risk. I kind of expect this isn't the right time or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is essentially what he was saying. And he told me just last week when we were sitting on the porch, he's like, when I wrote you and I was saying a pass on that moment in time, I thought that was probably the only chance I got. And I wanted to work with you in the room, but I thought it probably won't happen now because I just passed on this. And then a couple years later, fast forward to when I reached out again about, I think I'm just going to be in the area essentially. And now that we know each other through the podcast, it'll be great to say hi. It was his invitation to let's go make music, which if you think about the full circle for me was really special because it's an artist that I really looked up to. And as I was coming up was someone that I admired. So then to be like showing up and sitting in the room and looking across and hearing his voice coming through in my headphones, I'm looking at him playing violin and singing and I'm playing piano. And I just want to go right to like Sunday night we get there. Mm-hmm. And it was a difficult drive. That was the day where it's complete depletion.
Yes.
And you're also still sick.
I was still sick.
You just driven, did the whole day flying.
My one goal was like
3 hours out there.
But it took 5 hours to get there.
Because we had to charge
and other things. And I said, I just need to get you to Peter. I just need to deliver you to Peter.
And Peter's, we arrive, he's so sweet, and I'm sure you can tell, like, we spoke to it. We're like, we're quite depleted. But a part of me is like, I'd really love to get everything set up. Because I don't know, we lost all this equipment. And I went and bought stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know. I want to make sure I have everything we need to literally just be able to record anything, because I was engineering. So we set it all up, and I was actually having problems. Like I couldn't get the interface to work. I finally got that figured out. Then my power converter is creating all this noise because the other one was lost. Got everything set up. Piano mic'd up. He got this looping setup going for himself with his violin and so forth. And I was like, hit record. We didn't even talk. Sit down at the piano, just start playing these chords. And he starts making this loop. And we record this like 7-8 minute improvisation that I'm listening in my headphones to it. And I'm just like, wow, like total soul space. And it finishes. And I look over to him. I think I just said, that was sick. like complete explosion. And we go to bed, right? And the week goes on. And it turns out that first welcoming, just like whatever that was, like a remembrance of two souls. I look back now, I'm like, how many times have we done this before in different shapes and sizes across time? And so great to see you again. It gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, I feel that.
And here it is. And in that song, in a sense, is like a celebration of renewal and remembrance and connection. And it's not just for two souls, it's for all souls. And that's the energy that's in that song that I can't wait to share with people.
Ugh. Yes. 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 Yeah, I remember that moment. I was there on the couch just catching up on some work as you were getting all the cables and all the parts and all the pieces and all the recording.
A wonderful
and all the gear
mess of cables
everywhere. And then you, like you said, you didn't talk, and both of you just started playing without words.
And it was the same thing of like
agreement.
Those limitations of like how difficult the energy was for me. I also knew this is also a possibility because everything else is so fucked up in my head right now. That something, I don't know why that is. But I knew, too, is like something special can happen because of the limitations.
And it did. And it did.
So we proceeded to record for a week. Complete dream and complete privilege to have that time and space. And right now, we just got back. It's not even been a few days. But right now, the sequence of the album is 12 songs. That's all we recorded. And it's in the order we recorded it.
Will be the album.
Maybe. I mean, right now, it's when you listen, it's some kind of magical unfolding that I've never had something like that happen, ever. It almost was like you're hearing the week unfold in real time.
And the lands and the place.
We're surrounded by what was called the Burren, which is this valley with these big hills that are beautiful rock.
It's ancient seabed.
With ruins around and the ocean on one end, and then this bowl of this, and we're in the middle of that. So you're looking at this burn and the ocean down there, with the rain and the wind and then the sun and then a rainbow.
And the birds and the trees and the grass.
The birds are in every song because, they're coming through the window. And we made a real commitment to let the land, like, I want this landscape to be the voice. Like, I pray that we can let it speak through us and sing through us. That was the ask. I did field recordings of what I could around us. And I really now, just coming back from it, thinking how that all unfolded, it really felt like the land did speak through.
I believe that.
this record.
I felt that. It informed everything. It informed every day.
Even the times there were lyrics, it was like what we just saw or did outside. Like we found this hawthorn tree and we're like, we need to write about this tree. Like now we're going to go down and do it. And then I made a field recording of the space. You go down, and that's how it flowed. And Peter, I guess I should say, I don't know if I should say this. Let's just say we also were foraging plants and elements from that land and eating them. And they were affecting our consciousness positively as a way, but quite literally of a way of honoring drinking its water. You speak about the water, the well.
Yes. Okay. Well, you two were making music, and my intention being there with you was to be supportive in whatever way that I could, and to not get in your way, and just help to elevate whatever you might need. And so I thought, well, I need to get out of the way. I don't want to be a distraction in the room or the place or a limiter because Radha's here. And so I wanted to explore the place in Ireland. And that night when you made the first track, actually, what I was looking up on the computer is like, where do I want to go? What's here? What's in this place? And I'm always drawn to hot springs. So I was checking to see if Ireland had hot springs. They do not. It's not volcanic. But they have these holy wells. And we were in the County Clare. That's the site of hundreds of these ancient, what they call holy waters or holy wells, which I had no idea of. And I found a map that had them all like laid out, this like old defunct website. It's just a rabbit hole that took me there. And so I went out the next day and realized I had to charge the car. And so a whole day was kind of lost doing that. And when I got back from that day where I had to just go and basically charge the car and I didn't get to go to the sites that I'd wanted, I got back to the house and I was like, I just need to get on the land. Everything I knew was like, I just have to walk around and be here in this place. I'm walking out the front door. I don't know where I'm going. And Peter was like, you could go up the road and take a, sharp right. And maybe our friend said there's a spot up there. So I walk out and I'm like, no, that's not actually the place. And we're near these Alwee caves, Ailwee, Alwee caves.
Yeah. It's like a cave in the burn.
In the burn that was closed. It wasn't open, like a kind of like a tourist site. And so there weren't any tourists. Nobody was there because the caves weren't open.
Very quiet.
And I saw this pasture with these big boulders that looked like it made a circle. And I was like, whatever that is, I'm going over there. And so I kind of trespass and go into this field through the gates. And it's like I never took you and Peter over to that spot, but it's probably like 15 feet across, big stones, like a giant well entrance. But on the inside, it went down, but there wasn't water. But we spent some time with there. And for me, it's important to just I kind of had this practice that I learned from Dave Holliday in Boulder, Utah.
Also on the podcast, check it out.
Of introducing yourself to the land when you get to places. And so the practice is like saying your full name and saying who your parents are and just saying to the lands this is who I am. Thank you for inviting me into your space. And I want to know who you are. And I want to be in a relationship with you. And so I do that a lot now. And I was doing something like that there and spent some time there. But then when I came out of that little enclosure, I saw to my left like another circular patch of bushes that for some reason over there I was like, what is happening there? I want to go into that space. And so I wandered over there and kind of dug my way in. And as soon as I came in, you don't hear anything when you first go in, but if you keep going further, you start to hear water. And then, how deep would you say that well was?
So it's probably 10 feet across, and it went down probably 15 feet, maybe, or 10 or 15 feet.
And just ancient, covered in moss, all these stones down.
It's stacked rocks around it that are probably 1,000+ years old. Whoever stacked it, guessing to keep out livestock from falling in or something. But yeah, it's all mossy, and you go down there, and there's a little tiny spring.
like a fresh spring right out of the earth, which is exactly what I had been hoping to go to that day.
Right next to the house. Like
just outside the door.
Maybe 300 feet.
But you wouldn't know because it's enclosed. And so I found the spring and just sat there. And I didn't want to go down into it because I didn't know if I'd be able to get out by myself. But I thought the next day I'm going to bring Peter and Krishna here and we can get some of the water. And then... So you were saying we could just drink from the spring. It was incredibly magical and incredibly, it just felt like such a gift from the place and the land. Because this well, like on the map that I had found, it wasn't even on it. It just appeared.
I bet there are little springs everywhere. Out of that burn. Yeah, so we went back and we filled up our water bottles regularly and we're drinking this water. So going back to, imbibing the land. And Peter loves to forage. And so...
Wednesday.
Just the medicine of the land. And so, I mean, what a better way, besides listening to the land and communicating with it and asking it to speak through you, and like literally putting it in your body. It was so beautiful. I just love the ritual. I mean, every day we get up, I slept really well there. I'd make a fire, have coffee, and immediately we'd just start making music, like immediately. So the second day, right away, I do that, get up, we're drinking coffee. He's already got a guitar in his hand, and he's doing this tune that became the second song on the record.
The first morning, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Song. I don't know how, with lyrics and with a gentle guitar and harmonized vocals and a piano, and has this long, beautiful outro with the field recording of the birds that morning. Like everything was of time and place in real time.
Yep.
And then that's the second one. We're both looking at each other like, what the hell is going on? Like, and it just was from there, just off. I'm still stunned and buzzing.
Oh, fully.
From what happened. I think him and I, look, I've had wonderful collaborations. They've all been great. But it's rare to kind of do it in real time in person. And I want to give credit to Peter, who his only request and rule, so to speak, before we got there was no plan. And I was like, you got it. And I didn't. I had no prepared anything, songs, and neither did he. And I thought that allowed us to be completely open, tabula rasa, to whatever wanted to emerge. And that was a lesson to really cement that idea in me of like, shit, you can't fully be the channel until you give up your expectations. Because then you're fully in service and allowing something to become that is becoming. You're just getting out of the way.
Mm-hmm. It's life. It's prana. It's organic. It's charged. It's true. It's real. It's not from the past. If you had come with something prepared, that would have been mined in previous time and space. Mm-hmm. And neither of you did it. Like that morning that we went to, I then took you to the well, and then we hiked up just a little bit up the Burren, and then Peter was foraging along the way. It was a fun guy tour. FUNGUY. But then we came back down and he made us that frittata with like the things that he had just picked.
Oh, first, shout out to him for like being the chef and you, but amazing food.
Yeah, he
all this greens from the land and nettles and tea and
it was wonderful.
Local, almost everything was local.
Yeah, and getting for myself to make food for the two of you and then
that was beautiful.
Clean it all up and just like hold that domestic space while then you just got to work. Like we came back from that, made breakfast together, gorgeous breakfast, and then I'm cleaning up and you're starting to do like the first shakers and percussion.
The kitchen table is right behind the console where we're mixing and the monitors. I mean, all I did was turn the chair around. We can eat and I can just turn around and we're listening to things as we're eating. It was just a complete immersion in music. And midweek, Peter really wanted to go on a hike, essentially. And I wanted to inside, but I was also the tracker. I'm the tracker. So I'm like, I'm worried about I really would love to have an album's worth of material.
You're the time manager. You're the
I'm the
one
timekeeper.
that's like,
It's
we
part of
have
my
to
personality.
squeeze every bit of creativity out of this. And Peter was like, I think it would inform the work we're doing if we spend some time on the land together. The three of us, let's go out. And he wanted to hike to the top of the Burren. And I was like, I think it's a false summit. Like, I don't think we're going to get there and be at the top. What if it just keeps going? And it was like, well, let's just go and see.
Well, of course, it's pretty stormy weather the whole week, but right that day, unexpectedly, the sun came out and stayed out all
Blue
day.
skies.
Beautiful day.
Gorgeous
Calm,
sunlight.
and we're just like, holy cow. So,
can we say that we took some mushrooms?
Well, I said, total legal edible mushrooms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then walked out, brought our spring water, started hiking up the Burren, and then there's not a path. There's kind of a path, but not a path.
Not really. Path goes away quite quickly.
And it's that stone, but then like thorny bushes and windy.
It's a bit treacherous,
sky.
actually, because the rock is kind of like, looks like frozen water and rock. So there's these like little chasms in between.
Yeah, there's a certain name for that.
Knee deep. I mean, you'll break an ankle easy if you're not paying attention.
So we're hiking, and the boys, Peter and Krishna, slowly start to like open up energetically more, especially Mr. Timekeeper, to the fact that this is what's going on. And we hike up quite a long ways, and we take turns leading, and we get to a place where I'm just like, I kind of just like to let the land lead me and wander. And that's what I've been doing when I would go out during the day and finding these spots. And we're in one of these modes where I was like, let's just see where the land wants to take us. I think we need to go up here and then over there. Come on, guys. Come on. And then all of a sudden, it's not stone, craggy. It's hawthorn, magical, moss-covered glade enclosure, Mecca, like Shea fairyland.
There was a depression about 100 feet deep, as you're going up the mountain, and it was level and went down. And because it went down, you couldn't really see it from here, but you saw the top of this beautiful small tree, and it turns out it's an old hawthorn tree.
Ancient. But
perfectly formed. And under it are all these like leprechaun rocks with about 8 to 10 inches of thick, dry because of the sun, moss you can like sit and lie on. That's like a giant cushion.
And these yellow flowers and purple flowers.
And no wind because of it. You're depressed down. The wind's going over, completely still. Sun. So we're like, this is where we're going to hang for a while. And I had this amazing connection with that tree and that land and thinking how much had happened in that spot. It must have. I could feel it. It felt like a place of renewal and composting.
Incredibly sacred.
Oh, yeah.
Rituals,
beautiful
ceremonies, just magic, portal, beauty, gift.
Yeah. And so, that's where we spent the rest of the whole day. And then when we came down, had this inspiration. Peter really wanted to write a song that was a cappella about the hawthorn tree, which I was fully on board. Let him take the lead on that, though, because I knew that was...
He was saying a cappella from the beginning. He's like, we're going to do an a cappella song.
Yeah,
I think like first night
great.
he named
Great
that.
idea. Great idea.
Then the hawthorn became the muse.
Yes. So there's a song that you want to do. It's kind of like a Irish drinking song, seriously, about the hawthorn.
Lord of the Rings style.
It's short. And I was trying to wrap my head around, like, how does this fit into this whole project? Long story short, we finally got it recorded one night, and then we put it into, like, a round, a traditional musical round. And then he's like, I think it'd be cool if, like, it kind of goes into the ether or something. I'm like, oh, now you're speaking my language. I know how to do that.
We're going to East Forest all over this.
So we blasted it in. At the end of it, it just goes into a sea of delays and choruses and reverbs where it literally dissipates into the ether. And then by putting a particular little bass line to it, boom. Like, oh, this is all now like an ancient song about, almost like a male drinking song from the Viking times. It's what it sounds like. That gets obliterated into history or something. That's so touching.
And it encapsulates the experience that we had of just like, just the moss and the rocks and the weights and the spiders and opening and heart opening and all like what was occurring while we were there is in the song.
Yeah. And this is another example of like the experience in the land and the time we were having directly translating into music in as it's happening. That again, I've never had an experience like that. It's such a beautiful house and just like the vibes there. I loved that house.
The Beekeepers is the name of the home.
Beautiful little piano they just got in this old Schimmel. And even that had the character of the place. It had this sort of soft, intimate tone that felt like what it was, a little console piano in the countryside of Ireland. It was a nice instrument, like so it wasn't like some weird twangy piano. But I liked it. It was small, really small piano. And Peter plays everything. So we
genius. Peter's a genius.
Yeah, genius. Strings on there, guitar on there, percussion on there, and lots of vocals and
songwriting.
Yeah.
I was featured on my first song.
Yeah, Peter wanted some spoken word, so he wrote like a poem, and we had you speak it. Mm-hmm. And there's quite diversity. Like that song, I know people are like, you're talking about this stuff. It'd be great to hear it. I wish I could share it right now, but soon enough, we'll get this record out into the world. But there's stuff on there that's like, we did a lot of, everything's acoustic, almost exclusively, except for this one song with some electronic beats. Everything was just, we made these sounds like creating drums and shakers and loops to create a drum beat, keyboards and anyway, it's hard to describe, but there's a diversity of sonic in there for sure. It's really cool. So that was the last week, and everything was leading up to that in a way. So that added in some ways to the pressure of these performances because I also wanted to stay healthy because it was important to me. I just really wanted to do it. And it was difficult to like be grasping so hard to that desire, but also being like, I also trust this process. I can't say what it is, and do that dance where you're just like, I give over, and losing the luggage with gear for it. It's like we barely had enough to literally record, like the stuff that I brought, all the little adapters and stuff gone. So shout out to Simon, his friend in the area. We also borrowed some stuff from him. And shout out to Camden Recording Studios in Dublin that loaned us a few microphones and a preamp and some cables and stuff like that.
And you got by. You got
we
by
pieced it together
without your toiletries. Your finely dialed toiletry kit.
The little temporary toothbrush they give you on the airplane, you know. And this little tiny tube of toothpaste. That's it.
And
that's it.
Guys, he usually has he does like bags of pills.
Oh, it's
and
vitamins. It's like,
yes,
I'm not
like whatever.
It's all my health
yes,
stuff, like
all
fish
of your
oils
health
and turmeric
and magnesium,
melatonin for night, and like this is like keeping me going.
I need all of these things.
Well, hey, and we used a lot of it when you got sick. You know, it's like you were real grateful I had it, right? It's like, what do you need? You need some NyQuil? Boom, NyQuil. What else do you need? You know, I take some vitamin D.
That's just to say you didn't have your normal fortitude of like just how you care for yourself, which is important to you. You didn't have your hair buzzer.
Nope.
You didn't have your deodorants. You didn't have.
I didn't have a razor, a dick. Like, I mean, I didn't have underwear. And that's just how we rolled. I mean, I had no option. I had to give in to that. That was the least of my concerns. I was just like,
yeah,
you know, do I have like a way to convert 220 power to 120?
Well, in some ways, it just feels like getting rid of those things that support you just made you so present with
I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest, like having no clothes.
Yeah.
I did because it made all this, it just cut away the chafe of the unimportant stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, none of that matters. I don't even have to, every day I'm like, I just put on the same pants. It doesn't, there is nothing to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's just truly just focus on one thing. Mm-hmm. And I liked it, to be honest. I liked the minimalism of that, but there were some nice shirts in there.
Oh, I'm sad that you don't have your pieces now.
I know. I just bought too a harmonica, and that was in there. And
oh yeah,
also
the one in London.
The guy Robert gave us that Sensate device to try out. That was in there.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
And the tea that Laura gave us, the wonderful woman that came to film in London, lost that.
I know.
All the jangles.
It may still appear, but I'm losing hope in KLM big time.
I'm just so grateful I didn't pack the altar, because that would have been gone too.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, like of all the bags to lose, that was the one to lose, because the other one had critical stuff, and then the keyboard's the keyboard.
And then what would Radha do without her clothes?
And without your clothes, you would have melted.
That's not true.
Where's
I like
the credit card?
I like the simplicity of it too. I do. I like the simplicity of like no choice. I bring a lot of clothes, and then I'm like, I'll wear the same thing every day.
I keep telling you that. It's like you don't really care as much when you're traveling. Like,
it's a weird thing for me that I
bring
haven't
a couple
quite figured
of your
out.
favorite shirts, and you'll be totally happy.
I feel like I have to pack for variety though.
But you don't. That's what you don't care about variety when you're out there.
I know. I'm just telling you the thought process.
Well, now we know. Yeah. So, still, I mean, I'm glad we're recording this now because, I mean, we've been back like a couple hours essentially.
Yeah,
and coming back wasn't, I would say, unusual, but it was pretty rough because we got back at midnight Boise time, which means, I don't know, it's like 8, 9 a.m. UK time.
It was 36 hours of travel to get back.
But what it meant was, you've got a whole long day of travel, and then at the end of it, the last 8 hours, you're essentially staying up all night because it's hard to sleep on the plane. And we didn't get upgraded really so it's the usual, like, it's hard to sleep.
The lady next to me kept pushing my elbow off of
How dare she?
Off of the armrest too.
How dare she?
And
she had the light on.
She
working.
did have the light on.
It's like, lady,
but she
no
kept
work.
pushing my elbow off the armrest. I was in the middle.
She pushed your elbow?
Which is
she American?
Yeah.
But she was.
She was. But anyways, I was so tired.
You were middling too. You were middling.
Exactly.
And the middler, it's like the least they can have. They get that. They get it. They get priority on the arm.
Because you get your own arm thing on the side.
You got all
everybody
that space.
Gets their extra
Everybody
one.
knows this. Everybody knows that.
Well.
How dare she?
She was a little pushy with her elbow.
Shame on you, lady, in 13C.
But we had to COVID test before you travel back too, and that's always like the hanging chat of like, will we be able to go home even?
Yeah, it's like 9 a.m. in Dublin, and when we walked out of it, I remarked to you, it's like, it was just like, yeah, we're doing this, and you like, just imagine a few years ago, you're like, oh yeah. Before you get on a plane, you're going to walk in this little like building with people with hazmat suits on, and you're going to do these tests, and you're going to be like, yep, nope, yes, what we do. And it's doing this strange situation.
The ritual of the thing up the nose. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, we don't have to get into the COVID hole, but that was, you're right, one last, like, is this even going to happen? Are we going to fly at all?
Because you were like, Radha, you were just sick. Was that? It wasn't COVID. I just had a really bad sinus infection. I got caught in the rain right before the church concert in London. And it's
dumped.
It's just, that's what happens.
Well, you were sick a week and a half before, and you were kind of thinking maybe you weren't fully recovered, and it's been a haul. I always knew that April and May were going to be pretty much tree fort March through the end of May. It was a big lift for both of us, and here we are making our way through it with
high five.
With as much grace as we can. And everyone in Ireland and London was so sweet. Like, just people, everyone was just sweet.
Lovely.
Really?
Generous, warm,
random
open-hearted.
people you're talking to on the street or asking a question, just kindness.
Love.
And sweetness.
Generosity, openness, welcome arms, all of it, everywhere.
Yeah.
So grateful.
So that's it. That's the roundup for the tour, and would hope to go back, but also need to kind of wrap my head around like what that means and how to make it sustainable on all levels. There's a path, there's a way. I'm just letting it settle so that I can continue to listen to, like, not just forcing my way forward, but like, how does this want to happen? that's in the highest service to ourselves and to everyone. I don't fully have that answer. We are scheduled to go back, but I need to wait a little bit to let that unfold. But amazing,
I loved
amazing trip.
All
amazing.
in all, I absolutely loved it. And we didn't even get to talk about our friends from the Imperial College.
Oh yeah, in London, that was right at the beginning. Robin Carhart Harris, who is he's also been on the podcast. Amazing. He was the lead researcher at Imperial College London psilocybin research, now at UCSF. And he's also now an advisor for journeyspace.com. He introduced us as like anyone we should meet over there. And so we went over to their new research center called Cyprus.
Yeah.
Cyprus.
Mm-hmm.
And David there took us around and got to see the whole new center. And also, who else did we meet? Chris, who's the DMT researcher. And then they took us to dinner they all live in these houseboats, a lot of them, which was on the canals in London. It was so fun. We had this amazing Israeli dinner. Amazing. It was so fun.
Noah and Chris. It's the other. There's two Chris's, right? No,
yeah, Chris,
no.
His partner's Chris, and then Chris the researcher.
No, but Lior.
Mm-hmm.
Lior and Noah. We went to their house.
And Alexander was there.
Mm-hmm, Alexander and Chris's girlfriend, Mar, I believe her name was. And it was like the most idyllic.
Sitting on the side of the canal outside with the houseboats. It was kind of cool
and the
and
vines
cold.
And the arbory and
his beautiful homemade meal.
God, it was just. And the lighting was perfect.
And everything. Just so great people, and it was wonderful to meet them. And so the Imperial College psychedelic team is badass.
They are.
They're badass.
And most of them live in these boats together and have this like mooring landing community. It made me jealous for like that type of constant connection and community. It was. I feel so grateful that we were welcomed into that for an evening.
Alex, right? Is Alexander?
Yeah.
He had reached out. I totally had not put the pieces together on email previously. It was like, hey, I'm writing a book. I'd love to interview you while you're here. And I was like, I think we can do this. And I didn't realize it was him.
At dinner.
And then we're at dinner. He's like, no, I'm that guy. And I was like, kind of mortified. I was like, hope I wasn't rude. And I was like, oh, of course we can do that. And then he's like, yeah, I'm the guy who you were on my podcast, the Visionary Artist Podcast, in 2008. And I was like, that's you? I was on, oh my, complete full circle. And so we ended up doing a little pod, and lovely, lovely guy.
And spent the day too with Ellen Hall.
Eileen,
sorry.
Yeah,
Eileen
the
Hall.
artist. She did the artwork for John Hopkins' last record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, went to museums, yada, yada. We had a couple extra days in London. That was great. Ba-ba. So on that note, we got to run because I have a million things to do so I can leave tomorrow, as do you. And blessings to everyone. Thank you, Maharaji. We met some wonderful Ram Dass community people, actually, at all the shows, which is so fun to see like the Sangha around the world. And we look forward to coming back. Right now, it's in November 15th. We'll be in London, and tickets are already selling. So if you want to come, do that. Hopefully, we'll be back in Dublin, and I'm sure it'll happen.
Ireland.
Yeah, those aren't ticketed quite yet.
And this album, what? I can't wait for it to come out.
I know, it's a few days old. But thank you, Peter, for your vision and openness and vulnerability as an artist. When we both showed up that way, and it was very giving to art, in a sense, just giving to like, let's just let this be what it wants to be. And, you know, in my mind, it's like, that could be a couple ambient songs, that could be anything, and it's fine. I'm not attached to what it ends up being, other than once it started to happen, I was like, man, we have 5-6 more days. If there's a way to get enough songs to make it an album, that would be cool.
Which you did. You did.
And then it just like ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And then the last morning We had like 1 hour left, and he's like, "Do you want to do one more improvisation?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
Well, you were about to unplug the microphones
I'm
and
just
like
about
wrap
to
it
unplug
up.
everything.
He's like,
because we had to go.
One more.
I was like, "Fuck yeah, man!" And we did that, and of course, that feels like the closer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a bookend to the first one sonically, in the same sort of open key. The temp title on that one is just Goodbye, because to me it was like, the sacredness of endings. And on that note, we will end this podcast.
Love you all.
Y'all keep walking your walk.
And if you take
Don't
any
take any shit.
And if you take any shit, do it with
grace.
Do it with grace.
Thanks, Radha, for taking the time this morning. We just got up and she's got to bounce, and I'm trying to get out of here too. But we were like, let's do this while it's fresh. So thank you. Check out her work. She's an amazing. She does life coaching and ketamine therapy here at the Boise Ketamine Clinic, but she does a lot of stuff online. Co-founder of JourneySpace.com with myself and my brother Louis. She's got lots to offer, so go to MarissaRadhaWepner.com and you can see everything about her. This song again you're listening to in the background is called "A Breeze Told Me So," featuring Richard Woodbury. It is off my new record that is rolling out called Still Possible, and that is wherever you listen to music. Looking forward to seeing you soon. See you soon, Denver, on the 20th of April, right now, in San Diego on the 25th. You guys keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit, but if you do it with grace.